I came to Austin because I needed to get away from my stepfather, my mother. Even now, I can hear her voice angry at me for not telling her the whole truth. My real father died when I was 6. The doctor said it was an aneurysm. He just collapsed at work. I remember him as a happy man, but I don't have many specific memories. I think he worked a lot. I remember him giving me a toy guitar when I was about 4, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Apparently, I played it all the time, driving them both crazy. On my 8th birthday, my mom finally bought me a real guitar. It was a small Yamaha, about 3/4 size, and I loved it. I remember hugging it tightly, and tears came to her eyes when she said that Dad would have been happy to see me with it. When he died, my mom was devastated, of course, but my dad had planned ahead. And while she was dealing with her grief, we lived pretty well, at least financially. Before he died, she worked as a secretary at a local real estate agency. And after that, she got her real estate license. She loved it and was good at it, so we were able to stay in the house. Life went on, and the two of us lived together. I don't know where she met Rodney, call me Rod, Canton. I had just turned 12 when she sat me down at the table and asked me what I thought about her dating someone. We had been living together for 6 years, and of course, I hated the idea. Mom just let me vent, then gently explained that she would never stop loving my father, but she was lonely, etc. I didn't want to hear it, but I felt bad that I had upset her with my pettiness. So I pretended everything was fine. A year later, she and Rodney got married. He was a nice guy, at least at first, but we didn't hit it off. I'm sure my mom hoped I would become a father figure to him, and maybe if I had been younger when she got married, that would have happened. He tried, I'm sure, but it didn't work out. I knew it upset my mom, but I just felt like he took something away from me. And then she was taken away from us for real. When I was 14, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she died the day before my 15th birthday. Birthdays are still hard for me. Anyway, before she died, she made me promise that I would study hard and not let her down. I wasn't going to do that. I had a 4.0 GPA. I think Rodney really loved my mom because he had a hard time with her too, but with me, now that she was gone, he stopped trying. Over the next 3 years, he gradually turned into a handsome man who sat hunched over in his chair and laughed at me. Next chapter. In my senior year of high school, I was about 5'10", weighed 150 pounds, had acne, unruly dark brown hair, and blue eyes that I hid behind ugly glasses. I was a typical rock band fan, except my band rehearsed in my friend Carrie's garage instead of on the soccer field. Her mom was cool, and we got along well. She was the closest person to me, like a mom, at least at that time. I think Carrie understood that, but she didn't think it was a big deal. I think all 4 of us were like feathers. I played guitar. Carrie Fisher was our lead singer and played keyboards. Jimmy Rogers played bass, and Floyd Jackson played drums. Josh loved to impersonate our manager, and we let him. He was very funny talking about the great concerts we were going to have once the last mysterious deal he was working on was finalized. Carrie was probably my best friend, and Josh was second. Usually it was just Carrie and me, but we often hung out as a trio when we weren't rehearsing cover songs in our garage. We were terrible, to say the least. We never had any gigs, but we had fun. Carrie was the same height as me, but she weighed 10 pounds more. She didn't have acne like I did, and she had wavy blonde hair that she usually wore in a strict ponytail and washed a day late. She just didn't care. I didn't care. In my teenage eyes, she was beautiful, and I think I fell in love with her forever. I also loved her voice. If either of us could play a decent song, her vocals could carry us anywhere. I really wanted to impress her, so I tried my best to play the guitar. Thank God for YouTube, because my good old stepfather definitely wouldn't have paid for lessons. I think I was pretty good at it. Good enough that I was allowed to play musical instruments when I got an academic scholarship to UT. That's the University of Texas at Austin. Austin was a big change from our small town near Rochester. We were lucky to live on the edge of a pretty good school district. Otherwise, I'd still be shoveling snow and dodging beer cans. Next chapter. But I'm getting ahead of myself. About halfway through my senior year of high school, I finally worked up the courage, with Josh's help, to ask Carrie out on a date. I stuttered through most of it and could barely look at her, but she said, "Okay, Brendan, I'd love to." I was already prepared for the expected rejection, so when my idiot brain finally processed her words, I somehow managed to say, "What?" "I am the devil with a silver tongue." She laughed and replied, I said I'd go with you, silly. What, where, and when? I winked at her. Um, how about Fireside? It was a local burger joint. And then we can go ice skating, Friday, at 6? Are you asking me or telling me, idiot? I blinked again. Come on, Brendan, it's me, Carrie. We've been friends since 5th grade. Are you deaf or something? I finally shook my head. Yeah, right, sorry. The whole conversation went completely differently in my head. I'm sure it did, she replied dryly. Next chapter. I didn't have a car, so she drove. She picked me up in her mom's minivan. After hamburgers at Fireside, we drove to Mendon Park, deciding to go ice skating on 100 Acres Pond. On the way, Carrie finally asked me, "So why did you decide to ask me out, Bren? After all, we spend almost all our time together anyway." Yes, I know, Carrie. You're my best friend. I think I would have asked you out sooner if you weren't, if you weren't my friend. She looked at me, then back at the road. I'm just going to say it, okay? She nodded. I don't think I've ever told you this before, but I've always thought you were beautiful, Carrie, even before I knew there were girls. But that's not all. You're smart, we get along great, and I love being around you. And when my mom died, you became like family to me. So, I don't think of you as a sister or anything like that because that would be weird, but Carrie reached out and took my hand. Bren, you're mumbling. I swallowed and continued. Yeah, sorry. Well, you know what my stepfather is like, and I think at the beginning of my senior year, I finally realized that I had to do something about it. I fell silent as we pulled into the park. Carrie turned off the engine and turned to face me. I did the same. Carrie, I don't know what's going to happen. I probably won't get into college unless a miracle happens. You're the only good thing in my life. I took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. I always want to be your friend, but I've realized that when we're together, I'm happy. And when you're not around, I want you to be. So I don't know. Maybe I was hoping we could be something more. Than friends, I mean. I looked at her, almost begging her to understand. She looked at me for a moment. Finally, she shook her head and lifted the corners of her lips slightly. What am I supposed to do with you, Bren? I smiled, but a little uncertainly. I liked it when we held hands. And that's what we did. We put on our skates and just held hands, skating around the pond. We looked at each other when we thought the other wasn't looking, then caught each other's gaze and looked away. We were silly, but in the best way possible. Slowly, we stopped in the middle of the pond and looked at each other. I reached out, took her hand in mine, and pulled her toward me. My heart was pounding in my chest. Damn, she must have heard it. So who's going to lean in first? I don't know, I admitted nervously. 50-50? She suggested, widening her eyes and looking into mine. I nodded and leaned toward her. She leaned toward me too, and we met in the middle. We kissed, just pressing our lips together, and that was it. For the rest of the year, we were inseparable. Not that we hadn't been inseparable before, but now it was different. Carrie's mom noticed and looked at us with tenderness in her eyes. Next chapter? When it finally happened, it was awkward, embarrassing, innocent, and beautiful. I told her I loved her, and she said she loved me too. We still spent time together, went to band practice, and generally acted like friends and lovers. But whatever it was, I think it made me appreciate those moments and her even more. All I know is that I didn't want my last year of high school to end. Next chapter. Of course, it all ended. But before that, I got a letter. Several letters, actually. But the biggest and most important one came from the University of Texas at Austin. Dear Mr. Barnes, congratulations! We are pleased to enroll you for the fall semester. And another letter from the Financial Aid Department awarding me an academic scholarship. I sat there looking at them, then slowly rode my bike to Carrie's house. I just sat on her porch for a while until she noticed me. Hey, Bren, what are you doing here? Want to come in? I just looked at her and handed her the letter. She came over and sat down next to me. I stared into space while she read it. She gasped and said, "Oh my God, Brendan, that's incredible. A full scholarship?" She turned to me breathless and said, "What the hell are you crying about?" I hugged her desperately. "No." She pushed me away and looked at me. "Bren, baby, what's wrong?" I, I, I can't leave you, Carrie. I can't. "Oh, Bren." She hugged me. and I buried my head in her shoulder. Yes, I was pathetic, but all I could think about was losing her. Because in my mind, separation meant the end of our relationship, and not being together meant the end of the world. I know it sounds silly when I say it like that, but that's what was going through my head. After what seemed like a long hug, we finally let go of each other. I was able to stop crying, and Carrie seemed to have started crying at some point too, but now she had calmed down as well. Let's not think about that right now. Let's go inside. Mom will be late. And she took me by the hand and led me to her room. Next chapter. In the end, we talked. I was smart, but not very wise. Carrie was just as smart, if not smarter, to be honest. But thank God she had wisdom too. She argued that it was too big an opportunity to pass up and why I had applied in the first place if I wasn't going to go. I didn't know what to say except that I just wanted to get away from my stepfather, and when I applied, we were just friends. I said it was just a pipe dream. I said I would go with her to SUNY Geneseo, and I said a lot of stupid things. We argued until she finally said, "Brendan, if you don't take this chance, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. And in the end, you'll take it out on me." She was a very wise person, and after much deliberation, I reluctantly came to the conclusion that she was right. So, in August, I packed my few belongings and she drove me to the bus station. We hardly spoke. We had already said enough in the days leading up to that. I just said, "I love you, Carrie, and I always will." I looked into her eyes as sincerely as I could. "That's a promise. No matter what happens, I will always love you." She smiled sadly. "I love you to infinity plus one." And I got on the bus. Next chapter. We tried to stay in touch, but we were both busy with school. I didn't have any money. My house in Rochester was rented out, and I couldn't come home for the holidays. Our conversations became fewer and fewer. I received beautiful cards for Christmas and my birthday and sent her the same. I also talked to Josh from time to time, and a couple of months into my sophomore year, he told me that she was casually dating him, but as far as he knew, there was nothing serious between them. It hurt, but I realized that we were 1 in 600 miles apart and living different lives. My life was in Texas and hers was in Rochester. I made some good friends in Austin and played in a local band regularly throughout college. I also found a part-time job at a local construction company, and my boss, Jeff Mitchell, took a liking to me. When he found out I was studying business at the University of Texas, he told me to learn everything I could while working on the crew, and I think he kept a close eye on me, or someone reported back to him, because at the beginning of my senior year, he told me that if I wanted a job after college, it would be mine. "An office job," he said, laughing. I found a gym on campus and forced myself to work out there. Exercise, fresh air, and a healthy diet helped clear up my skin, and in my third year, I suddenly grew 15 centimeters. My contacts also helped, and suddenly there were a lot of girls around me who seemed interested in me. I dated a few, but didn't get serious with anyone. In the end, I earned a bachelor's degree in business administration and music. I got a job at Mitchell Construction. One of Jeff's requirements was that all his employees be bilingual. He hired local tutors who gave lessons right in the office. I also continued going to the gym and even joined a local boxing club where I sparred a little but mostly just trained. This went on for about a year. Work, random gigs, hanging out. I had a few friends and continued to go on casual dates. Then we, that is, the company, got a contract to build a new complex in New Sweden, and my boss said I would go with him to meet with the developer and real estate agent. It was a warm Tuesday when we all gathered in the developer's conference room. It was almost as nice as our office. Bob, my boss, and I were there, and he introduced me to Frank Lewis, the developer, and his assistant, Sophia P.A. When I saw her, I froze. She was about 5'11", with long black hair, dark eyes, and flawless skin. I may be exaggerating a little, but she was truly stunning. After I was able to close my mouth and mumble a greeting, Bob introduced the two real estate agents. Walt Jeffries shook my hand, but the second realtor just stared at me. He was Latino, about 187 years tall, and I think I remember his name, Ray Gutierrez. After the meeting, I tried to catch up with Sophia, but I saw Ray open the door for her and put his arm around her. She turned to say something to him and saw me, but I just walked away. Next chapter. A couple of weeks later, Sophia called me to set up another meeting. I arrived and met her at the office. "Is Ray here?" I asked, clearly not as calm as I thought I was. She smiled. No, it's just about the construction. He doesn't need to know. How much meaning she put into that last sentence. I just tried to focus on what she wanted to discuss. After the meeting, I asked, Sophia, before I make a fool of myself, is there something going on between you and Ray? If you want, tell him it's none of my business, but I've been thinking about asking you out for a drink, and I don't want you to say no. I thought I was being clever. How wrong I was. She just said, don't do that. It's none of your business. And she held the door open for me. Wow, that was cool. Fair enough, I said and got up to leave. As I walked past her, she put her hand on my shoulder. She smiled seductively at me and asked, I thought you were going to ask me out for a drink. I looked at her in confusion. But I thought you just said. She stopped me. I said what I'm doing with Ray is none of your business. Then she smiled again. And what I'm doing with you is none of his business. I thought for a moment. You know what, Sophia? On Friday night, I'm playing at my friend Jason's bar, Kathy Elder's. If you want, you can come by and have a drink. I think I really surprised her with that. Oh, you're a musician too? You're a man of many talents. I laughed. It sounded pretty corny. I just said, I'll have everything you asked for ready by the end of the day on Thursday, okay? Maybe I'll see you on Friday. Next chapter. We played a mix of new country music and 70s Southern rock, and we had a decent crowd. Jason had a small dance floor, and it was packed. I almost missed her, but I noticed all the heads turn when she walked through the bar and sat down on a tall stool in the corner. She was wearing a short skirt and a sleeveless tank top so she wouldn't get too hot on the warm evening, and she had to fidget a little to get comfortable on the stool. Almost immediately, a guy from the fraternity approached her and clearly asked her to dance. She jumped off the stool, and they headed for the dance floor. To her credit, the fraternity guy tried to approach her, but she fended him off pretty easily. After the song, he wanted to continue, but she just shook her head and returned to her seat. Another guy tried to bring her a drink, but she just looked at him. No, 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 dude. I think, well, I hope, that every girl knows that you should never take an open drink from a guy. She danced a lot, but never more than once with the same guy. I was sure she was drinking water from a bottle she had gotten at the bar. She must have seen me on stage, but for some reason didn't recognize me until the first break, so I went over to her. As expected, there was another guy who looked like a soccer player trying to strike up a conversation with her. I just walked up and said, "Hi, sweetie, sorry I'm late," and kissed her on the cheek. "Who's your friend?" I looked at the athlete. She hugged me, looked at him, and shrugged. We both just stared at him until he remembered something and walked away. We laughed about it. I wanted to walk away from her, but she kept holding on to me. "You promised me a drink," she smiled. "I did." I took her hand. "Let's go. I want to introduce you to someone." We walked over to the bar and I called out to Jason, "Hey, lazy bastard, is it that hard to get a drink around here?" Sophia looked at me with wide eyes and I just winked at her. Jason came over and looked at Sophia appraisingly. "Sophia, this is my friend." And I use that word loosely, Jason. He owns this dump. "Jason, this is Sophia." She looked around. "I think this is a nice place, Brendan." Jason smiled. "You're drinking for free tonight, my dear. Nice to meet you. Let me know when you realize what a jerk this guy is." "Oh, I already have," she smiled. "Oops, next chapter." We spent the rest of the break chatting and getting to know each other, until I had to go back on stage. "I have one more set, about 45 minutes, and then I'm done. If you want to stay, we can make plans." She thought about it. "No, it was fun, but I'm going to head home. But I wouldn't mind doing this again when you're not working." "Wow, okay." I won't lie, I was a little disappointed, but it was still a nice date. Next chapter. Going out for cocktails turned into dinner, which happened once, then twice a week. Then it turned into dancing or movies on the weekends. Then it turned into spending time together on Saturdays. After our second dinner, which was probably our fourth date, if you count the night at Katie Elder's, I walked her to the door, she turned to me, ran her fingers through my hair and pulled my head toward her. The kiss lasted until I ran out of breath and she just said, "I don't want to grow old waiting for you to make the first move. Maybe I'm slow, but I'm not. Okay, maybe I'm also stupid." But I pulled myself together again and we got to know each other better. After a few dates, she invited me to her place. We spent some time cuddling on the couch and things got hot. "I like you, Brendan, but I'm not sure I'm ready to take it further." "For now?" I smiled. She smiled back. "You never know." Next chapter. Her idea of taking it slow lasted exactly one date. She invited me over again, but this time we got together right at the front door. After a while, we went into her bedroom and got down to business. Then I took a shower, put on my pants, grabbed the rest of my clothes, and went back to the kitchen. She had made toast and handed me a plate. Thanks. I chewed and sipped my drink, thinking, Sophia, I probably should have asked you this before we... I waved my hand toward her bedroom. But I think I need to know. How do you see this? Are we just going to have fun together? I mean, yes, of course, but is that all? I reached out and took her hand. Or do you see something more in this? Brendan, I don't know what you want to hear right now. I nodded. Yeah, I understand. I'm sorry. That was too much. Don't worry about it, okay? God, I was an idiot. So what are your plans for today? I'm going to church with my family, like every Sunday. She smiled. I see. Well, I have to go, I said. Next chapter. Her family, her parents, Miguel and Luz and her brothers, Jaime and Hector, must have been surprised to see me, but they were too polite to show it. As for me, they liked me almost immediately. It should be noted that when Sophia introduced me, two things happened. First, I heard her mother ask her father to invite me to dinner in Spanish. I was distracted and didn't have time to respond. Instead, her father translated the request, and I graciously accepted. The second thing that distracted me from her mother's invitation was that I thought I heard Jaime ask Hector, also in Spanish, "What about Ray?" To which Sophia silenced him. I decided that I would just forget to tell Sophia that I spoke Spanish. I also decided that we needed to continue our morning conversation. Next chapter. Everything was normal with Sophia. We continued to see each other and spend Sundays with her family. A few weeks later, I asked her again where she thought we were going. We were lying in bed, and this time she smiled and snuggled closer. You make me happy, Brendan. Me too, I replied, kissing her. This went on for a minute, then I pulled away. Seriously, baby, do I make you happy when we enjoy spending time together? Or do I make you happy when I'm the only one for you? I noticed something flash across her face, but she replied, Only you, Brendan. I looked at her intently. Sophia, it makes me happier than you can imagine. I'm sorry for asking, but I have to. I have to. If it upsets you, I'm sorry, but I have to ask, does Ray know we're together? She sat down on the bed and stared at me. How can you ask me that? Please, Sophia, just answer the question. If we are not in an exclusive relationship, I have a right to know. Yes, Brendan, she hissed. I told him after we got together. She said the word with a hiss. The first time. Okay? I flinched at the venom in her voice, but just said, okay, thanks. She got up from the bed, went into the bathroom, and slammed the door. Next chapter. Things were a little tense for a few days, but eventually she came around. Flowers helped. Lots of flowers. About a month later, I hinted that I wanted us to move in together, but she said her parents would be horrified. And I backed off. We continued to spend Sundays with them, and I really enjoyed getting to know them better. I genuinely respected her parents and loved her brothers. One fall, I took her with me for a weekend in San Antonio. On Saturday afternoon, we walked through Hemisphere Park. I took her to the top of the American Tower and got down on one knee. All I could say was, Sophia, you... But she knelt down beside me and whispered, yes, yes, yes. There was applause. Later, after we had been celebrating our engagement for a while, she suddenly gasped. She sat up, the sheets bunched up around her waist. Brendan, did you talk to my father? He'll kill you if you didn't. I believe you, I said. But I've already taken care of everything, baby. He said that if you're willing to make peace with me, who is he to stop you? She threw herself at me, and the celebration continued. Next chapter. Since Miguel and Luz were the only daughters, the wedding went very well. Not pompous, but very sweet. Jason was my best man, and Sophia's brothers were the groomsmen. Sophia's friends were the bridesmaids and groomsmaids. When I saw her walking down the aisle arm in arm with Miguel, I'm not going to lie, for a minute I thought I was having an allergic reaction. In my situation, there was literally no one at my wedding except Jeff, his wife Karen, and a couple of friends from the office. But Sophia had a lot of friends and relatives who filled the church. At the reception, we went up to everyone, and she translated for the relatives who didn't know English very well. At one point, she whispered to me, Baby, you're going to have to learn Spanish if you want to stay in this family. I smiled and replied, You're probably right, but I like listening to you. It's so intimate, I guess. When you whisper in my ear what they're talking about, I felt a little guilty for continuing to pretend. She smiled back and bit her lip. In that ear? Oh. Next chapter. The next couple of years went great. After we finished the project we were working on together, we both moved on to other jobs. I got promoted, and I think Jeff gained confidence in his abilities. I missed working with Sophia, but otherwise everything was pretty much the same as before we got married. Dinners, dancing, the occasional concert, and Sundays with her family. We talked about starting a family. I brought it up several times, but she kept putting it off. Eventually, she got angry with me and said she wasn't at a point in her career where she was ready to have children. I wanted her to be happy, so I backed off, and things calmed down. This continued until Sophia was transferred to another facility in Bluff Springs. She started working late once a week, then twice. When she told me she would have to work Saturdays, I couldn't take it anymore. Honey, what kind of job is that? You've never worked that much before. I know, honey, it's just that the work is hard. There's a lot of red tape. Things are settling down, and I'll be able to get back to a normal schedule soon. But she never did. Next chapter. In the years before and after our wedding, business was good at Mitchell Construction. Jeff decided to throw a big party for the company and some of our partners who had helped us succeed. Our largest room was too small to accommodate everyone, so we rented, where else? Kathy Elder's house. Sophie and I talked and danced, mostly with each other, but sometimes with others. I danced with Jeff's wife and a few other ladies, and Sophie danced with Jeff and a few men from her office who were polite enough to ask my permission first. At one point, I was talking to Ralph Hughes, one of our foremen, when I noticed Sophie dancing with Ray. They were dancing quite close, and I saw Ray's hand go down on her butt. When she didn't immediately remove his hand, I asked Ralph to excuse me. I walked over to Sophia, and she smiled when she saw me. She said something to Ray that I didn't hear and continued dancing. I waited for her to come over to me. It's getting pretty cozy in here, Sophia, I said firmly. It's just Ray, we're just dancing. Are you jealous? She grinned. She had had a couple of cocktails and had clearly missed a few warning signs. Do I have a reason to be? My tone became even more tense. I mean, do you usually let just Ray grab you in public? Go to hell, Brendan. I told you we're just dancing. I stared at her, stunned. She realized what she had said and tried to grab my arm. Brendan, I'm so sorry. I think I went too far. Sure. I'm going to get some air. Brendan, wait, she called after me, but I just walked away. I noticed she wasn't trying to follow me. I walked over to the bar. Jason came up to me and raised an eyebrow. Just mineral water, bro. I sat there sipping my water and staring into space. Then I heard Jason say, Dude. He looked toward the stage. I followed his gaze and saw Sophia disappear through the stage door. What the hell? I headed in that direction. Jason stopped me and pointed over his shoulder toward his office. I nodded and went inside. Next chapter. I turned off the lights in his office and opened the door to the hallway. I saw Sophia and Ray leaning against the wall facing each other. They were speaking Spanish, but I managed to catch most of the conversation. Sophia said, Brandon is very angry. You shouldn't have grabbed my ass, Ray. Ray just grinned. Screw him. It's my ass and I'll grab it when I want to. She pointed at him and said, No, it's my ass, and I told you that you can't behave like that in public, especially when he's around. What the hell? Am I supposed to just wait? She replied coquettishly. Don't I always give you what you want? Just be patient. You know, we just have to be careful. Yeah, but that will make it even more obvious that he's probably sitting outside crying because he thinks you're mad at him, Ray said mockingly. We can do it right here. Just turn around. Sophia looked down the hallway and said, Okay, but quickly. She turned around and Ray motioned for her to go. At that moment, I walked in the door and cleared my throat. Sophia jumped up and let out a quiet scream. Ray stared at me. Hey guys, I missed you at the party. I took a couple of steps toward them. So what are you doing here, hiding? I took a couple more steps. Sophia turned pale but replied simply, Oh, we were discussing a project, you know. It was too noisy out there. Wow, such dedicated professionals at a party. Impressive. I slowly patted them on the shoulder. Brendan, why are you acting like this? Sophia was clearly nervous. She wasn't sure if I had seen. Oh, I don't know. Maybe, I switched to Spanish, because my wife was about to sleep with that piece of shit right here in this hallway. And it's pretty obvious that this has been going on for a while. That's why I'm acting like this. I didn't immediately notice that I had stopped speaking English, but when it became clear, Sophia covered her mouth with her hands and sank to the floor. Yes, I heard your entire conversation. Very enlightening. Sophia was crying, and I just stared at Ray. So, what are you going to do? Nothing else was needed. Ray swung at me. I was going to let him make the first move so I could defend myself with a clear conscience. Passing through Jason's office, I pulled a wad of quarters out of his wallet. You know, those heavy zippered bags that small business owners use to carry money to and from the bank. I clenched them in my fist, and when he swung at me with his right hand, I dodged and hit him with my left right under his ear, and he fell like a sack of wet shit. At least that's how it seemed to me. Sophia screamed and knelt down next to him. Don't worry about me, Sophia, your husband. I'm fine. I think you've made your choice. And I left the way I came in, throwing the bag where I had picked it up. Brendan, wait, she shouted. I just went back into the office, nodded to Jason, and headed for my car. Sophia followed me. She muttered that it wasn't what I thought, that there was nothing between them, that she loved me and asked me to stop and talk to her. In the end, I just stopped her. I looked at her and said, Honey, do you know what a white lie is? What? I don't know. A white lie is when I tell you that dress doesn't make you look fat. She stared at me. A white lie isn't the same as a big lie. A big lie is when I tell you I don't know Spanish. Her eyes widened, and I swear her skin paled 3 shades, and she staggered. You son of a bitch, she hissed. Mine? Oh, sorry, that's French. I heard you were having fun, and you were going to let him have fun with you right here, and I'm a son of a bitch? I shook my head. No, 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 no. She shook her head, looking at me imploringly. Baby, it's not what you think. I laughed. Really? It was just once. Bullshit. He means nothing to me, she almost shouted. For God's sake, Sophia, how many more ridiculous excuses are you going to make up for me? She began to sob. Please, Brendan, I'm sorry. I love you, please. I understand. You love me so much that you were going to entertain Ray at our company party? She continued to sob. It doesn't matter, Sophia. I've had enough. I'm going to a hotel tonight. You have until next weekend to get your things out of my house. No, Brendan, my life, you can't leave me, she moaned. I'm your life? She nodded. Yes, baby. You must be joking. If I'm your life, tell me why. I looked straight at her tear-stained face. This is your only chance. Tell me why and convince me that I should forgive you. But if I smell shit again, it's over. She snorted. Why don't we go home and talk about it? She wasn't stupid. She needed time to come up with something I would believe, but at that moment, I didn't care. I definitely didn't want to stay at the party any longer. You know what? Fine. You have until we get home to come up with a good story. We drove home in dead silence. When we arrived, Sophia immediately headed for the bathroom, no doubt biding her time. I heard the shower turn on. Suddenly enraged, I went to open the bathroom door. Seeing that it was locked, I kicked it in. She screamed and turned around to face me. Oh no! You're not going to wash that bastard off and then come and talk to me. Get your ass to the kitchen. She stared at me. How can you talk to me like that? You're kidding, right? I threw a bathrobe over her, a big terry cloth one, not silk, and waited. Still glaring at me, she put on the robe and went to the kitchen. I sat down across from her and waited. You go first. She kept looking at her hands, which were moving on her knees like 2 little animals. I started to get up. Okay, Sophia, if that's all you can do. No. She reached out to me, spreading her fingers wide, and I sat back down. No, please. Her face contorted, and she looked very unhappy. I felt the same way. I'm so sorry, Brendan. I just stared at her. You already said that, but since we're on the subject, what are you apologizing for cheating on me or for getting caught? She stared at me blankly. Never mind. But it's starting to smell in here, Sophia, so try harder. I didn't mean to hurt you, baby, I swear. I promise it won't happen again. I just laughed. I imagined Sophia diligently copying reasons from a long list in a large hardcover cheater's handbook, and I couldn't hold back my laughter. Sophia just stared at me in bewilderment. I slowly leaned forward, put my hands on the table, and lowered my head. My shoulders continued to shake. and I wasn't sure if I was laughing or crying. I felt more than I saw as Sophia gently reached out to touch my shoulder. I recoiled, and she recoiled. Please don't touch me. I sat up and wiped my face with my hands. I'm sorry, you have to believe me. Just give me a chance. And I know we can get through this, Brendan. I love you, she cried. I sighed and shook my head. I love you too. And that's why it hurts so much. But I gave you a chance, Sophia. We gave each other a chance. When we made our vows to each other in front of your entire family. She leaned back in her chair. I tried to pull myself together. Remember, Sophia? I take you as my lawful wife? Remember how you said that? She snorted and nodded. Good. I slammed my palms on the table and she jumped up again. I stood up and headed for the bedroom and Sophia followed me. She started grabbing me as I took a bag out of the closet and began stuffing clothes into it. She followed me into the bathroom still crying as I grabbed my razor, toothbrush, and other toiletries. I headed for the door. Before opening it, I turned to her. Next weekend, Sophia. I bought this house before I met you, and I'm going to keep it. Get your affairs in order by next weekend, and find yourself a lawyer. I'm still not sure if she really passed out or if she was faking it, but I didn't care. I left her there, lying on the floor. Next chapter? The next day was spent visiting a lawyer, the bank, the HR and finance departments of my company, and my boss. I didn't want to ruin Sophia's life, and I didn't want to pay alimony if I could avoid it, so I asked my lawyer to file for divorce by mutual consent. I divided our bank accounts and transferred my half to separate accounts. I removed her name from all other accounts and policies. It was one of the hardest days of my life, but the next day was even worse. I put on a suit and went to visit Sophia's parents. In the end, the lawyers sorted everything out. Sophia asked to be given the opportunity to talk to me before we signed the papers, and I just wanted to move on, so I agreed. She wanted to meet me at my house, but I flatly refused. I said I would meet her at her lawyer's office and we could talk there. When I arrived, she was already there. She looked stunning, as always. She smiled uncertainly, stood up and tried to hug me, but I just walked around the table and sat down across from her. Okay, Sophia, let's talk. She looked at me, then lowered her eyes. Brendan, I'm so sorry. I love you. You have to believe me. I believe you, Sophia. That's why it hurts so much. I asked, can you explain why? Did you really break up with him? Yes, I broke up with him. I swear, Brandon. When you first asked me if we wanted to date, I had already broken up with him. Okay, so what the hell happened? I don't know. Probably when I was transferred to a new project. We were working with a real estate agent who Ray worked for. Wait, you didn't think it was important to tell me you were working with Ray again? That's not helping you. I'm sorry, Brendan. I didn't think it was important. Exactly, Sophia. And that's another part of the problem, I said sadly. But please, go on. She looked at me. She really didn't understand why this small admission upset me so much, but she continued. I was with him for a long time before I met you, Brendan, and I don't know if he was an easily accessible person. At first, we really had to work overtime. One time, we worked late into the night, but we still had something to discuss. And he suggested we have dinner at the desk. I didn't think it would be anything special. I had a couple of glasses of wine, maybe more, and he started stroking my shoulders. I know I should have stopped him, but I was a little drunk and told myself it was harmless. Tears streamed down her cheeks. When it was over, I realized what I had done and was horrified at myself. I yelled at him and ran out of the house. The next day, I couldn't look at you. I knew you would look at me and realize what I had done, but you didn't look. She cried. Why should I have, Sophia? I trusted you, and who knows, maybe if you had confessed right away, you could have explained what happened. Not that drinking is an excuse, but maybe we could have talked and worked it out. I couldn't. I was so ashamed I couldn't tell you. I just nodded. But even then you didn't stop, did you? Fresh tears streamed down her face and she just nodded. I know it sounds so stupid when I say it now, but I never meant to hurt you. It was only a few times. Please, Brendan, give me another chance. I'll do anything. I looked at her, and my heart broke again. Sophia, I really love you, but I just can't trust you anymore. Every time you stayed late at work, I wondered if you were really at the office. If I called your phone and you didn't answer, I wondered who you were with. And that's no basis for a relationship. You'll start getting angry at me, and then what will happen to us? She shook her head. No, no, no. We can work through this, please. I'm so sorry, Sophia. Please, just sign the papers. I walked out of the office, her sobs echoing in my head. Next chapter. As much as I wanted to punish Ray again for what he had done to us, it turned out there was no need. I learned from Jamie that Ray had ended up in the emergency room with multiple bruises, a broken arm, a broken nose, and a concussion. Apparently, he had fallen down a flight of stairs. I suggested that he and Hector meet up for a drink on me. We drank to Ray's misfortune, and I didn't pay any attention to the scratches on both guys' knuckles. Sophia tried to call me several times, and I eventually blocked her number. A couple of months later, I found out she had moved in with Ray, and that was the final nail in the coffin. Shortly after that, Hector told me that Sophia had caught Ray with his bloody cousin. It was impossible to believe. I laughed and invited the guys out for drinks again. I think she left after that. Next chapter. I've never been a drinker and never felt the need for alcohol. Well, except for the last time I saw her. Instead, I threw myself into work. Jeff finally got it and told me to take 2 weeks off. Brendan, you're burning out. Have a couple of beers, go fishing, have some fun. Just get your mind off things for a while, son, okay? Women, or at least romantic relationships, were the last thing on my mind, so I wasn't having sex. However, I went to Lake Travis and fed the worms. 2 weeks later, I returned to work with sunburn and, at least, the beginnings of a new outlook on life. Jason and I talked it over, and like a true friend, he said I'd be better off without that crazy bitch. I continued to perform there on weekends, but I still wasn't ready to get back in the saddle even though I had a few opportunities. I tried to be gracious, and for the most part they understood, and let me know that the offer was still on the table if I wanted to take it. That improved my mood a little. For some reason, Jason installed a karaoke machine and Thursdays became official karaoke nights at Katie Elder's house. To my surprise, it turned out to be quite popular, and I started showing up to watch the fun. Next chapter. One Thursday afternoon, about 6 months after I last saw Sophia, I was sitting at the bar when a howl came from the stage. I jumped, as did half the bar, and then, as if out of nowhere, I heard a voice saying, "Sorry about that. Hi everyone, I just wanted to sing a song about how I'm trying to decide where to go next. It's something I had to do recently. I hope you like it." I heard the guitar intro, and then the voice sang Joe DeMessina's "Heads are Carolina, Tails are California." I was afraid to turn around, too. I used my reflection in the bar mirror to scope out the situation and couldn't believe my eyes. I recognized her voice immediately. Now I could see the same wavy blonde hair. She had gotten rid of her acne and lost 15 pounds, but she looked like the same beautiful girl I knew in school. And then a crazy idea popped into my head. I rushed to my car and grabbed my guitar case. Without looking up, I headed straight for the bar. "Jason," I whispered. He came over. "Yes, Brendan? What's with the guitar?" "No time, I need to go backstage. Can I use your office?" "Sure, no problem." "But what?" "No time," I repeated. "Just turn down the karaoke when I tell you, okay?" He looked even more puzzled, but I had already rushed out of the office. I ran to the stage doors, grabbed my guitar, quickly checked the tuning, and almost everything was fine, quietly opened the door and poked my head out. She had her back to me, so I crept up to the stage and sat down on the stool behind her. I signaled to Jason to turn off the sound and started playing. The singer looked up in surprise when the music stopped and my guitar began to play. She started to turn around. I lowered my head and made another come forward gesture. Today, my practice of sign language really paid off. She looked a little puzzled, a little confused, but continued singing, glancing at me from time to time. She finished her performance to thunderous applause. As I said, I had performed there before, and I think some people recognized me. Besides, she was still very good. Anyway, she turned and looked at me again, her hands on her hips, a puzzled half-smile on her face. I stood up and looked at her. "Hi, Carrie," I said. Her eyes widened and she opened her mouth in surprise. "Oh." She covered it with her hands for a second, then ran over and hugged me. I just held her close while the audience applauded and a few people whistled. "One more?" I winked at her. She pretended she didn't want to let me go, but nodded. "Remember this one?" And I launched into Jamie Lawson's "I Wasn't Expecting That." She laughed loudly and sang along again, this time looking at me instead of the audience. After that, I hugged her again and raised my hand, and the audience applauded. She smiled at them and at me and gave a shy curtsy. I led her to an empty table that Jason had thoughtfully reserved for us, and her friends came over and she introduced us to each other. They asked if she was okay, and she said yes. They asked if she wanted them to stay, and she said she could give her a ride, looking at me. I nodded and said I'd take care of her. One of them grinned and said she was sure I would. When we returned to the table, she looked at me and seemed to realize that she was supposed to look at me now. My God, Bren, when did you get so tall? I just smiled. I work a lot on construction and eat better. But look at you. You look amazing, Carrie. She blushed. Thanks. I have a similar story. I started working out, stopped eating hamburgers and French fries. And I see you finally got a haircut. I grinned. Yeah, no more hair. I ran my fingers awkwardly through my hair. Carrie smiled. I liked your hair. She pouted her lower lip and I chuckled again. We sat in silence for a few seconds before I said, It's not that I'm not glad to see you, but why are you here? Don't get me wrong, I'm glad you're here. You have no idea how much, I added. Sorry, too much, too soon? I smiled. No, it's okay, she said, looking down. Honesty, right? Best policy, I replied sincerely. Okay, well, damn, I still can't believe I'm sitting here talking to you. So I'm sorry I'm here. She sighed. I think it was at the end of freshman year when we started drifting apart and you said you couldn't come home for the summer. She saw the sadness on my face and hurried to continue. Don't blame yourself, Bren. I understand how you felt, honestly. It's just back then, at that moment, you know? I was in shock. I nodded. Me too, Carrie. Anyway, that's when I started paying more attention to myself. It didn't matter to you, remember? You thought I was beautiful from the start. She said it quietly, almost in surprise. I remember, I smiled. And I still do. She blushed again. So, I started losing weight, my face cleared up, and suddenly guys started paying attention to me. In my sophomore year, guys started asking me out on dates. At first I was furious. Like, where have you been? You know what I mean? I know exactly what you mean, sweetheart. She looked at me, smiled sweetly, and replied, Yeah, I guess so. So, I started dating guys, not very often at first, then more often. I think I became a little obsessed with boys. She hastened to add, I didn't sleep with them, I just went on dates a lot. But to be honest, I got bored with it pretty quickly. I graduated from Genesee with a degree in communications and went to work at WROC. Wow, that's so cool, I exclaimed. Yeah, it really was, she smiled. I got a job as an assistant producer. I think I worked there for about 2 years, and then they hired a new program director. She lowered her eyes. We kind of liked each other. I flinched slightly, hoping she hadn't noticed. What's his name? Carrie looked at me strangely, smiled, and disappeared. Barry? I stared at her. Then I started to giggle. Carrie giggled too, and I couldn't help myself. Maybe it was because I saw her like that again, so emotional. But I started to laugh out loud. Carrie and Barry? Oh my God. Shut up, she said, still giggling. It's not that funny. My laughter gradually subsided, and I wiped my eyes. No, I guess it's not funny. I'm sorry. We both sat back down in our seats. So where's Barry? I giggled again. But the laughter quickly faded when I saw her face. Still in Rochester, we dated for a little over a year, then got engaged. And then I found out what a jerk he was. Wait, I said. Turning in my chair, I waved to Jason, held up 2 fingers, and pointed to the table. He nodded. I'm sorry, but we need a drink for this conversation. A moment later, Jason was at our table with 2 glasses of Whistle Pig Rye. Vermont whiskey in a Texas bar might seem unusual, but Jason had stocked it especially for me. Something reminiscent of home. Thanks, Jason. Meet my friend Carrie, she's staying with us. Carrie, this rascal is my friend Jason. He owns this place. He ignored me. Nice to meet you, he said to Carrie, and she smiled at him. Then he waved at me and went back to the bar. Carrie took a small sip and gasped, Wow, Bren, that's more than just a sip. I smiled and took a sip too. I miss this, you know. Bren, you're the only one who ever called me that. She lowered her eyes, a slight smile playing on her lips. Then she took another sip and continued. We were about 6 months away from getting married, and one day he forgot his cell phone. Such a small thing, right? I looked at him, and that stupid jerk didn't even bother to delete his messages. With 2 of my friends. She shook her head and took another sip. I waved to Jason again. He came over, calmly put down the bottle and stepped back. When I asked him about it, he hit me. I growled, "Son of a bitch. I think I can get to Rochester in 2 days, and when I get there, I'm going to kick that asshole's ass." I started to walk out of the booth. She reached out and grabbed my shoulder. "Bren, stop. You're not going to Rochester." "Why?" "No one's going to hurt you. I'll show him." She giggled, and I raised an eyebrow. "You already did." I raised my other eyebrow. "Yeah, I punched him right in the balls and kept hitting him until a neighbor heard the noise and pulled me off him. I broke 2 of his ribs and ruptured one of his testicles," she said proudly. I stared at her. "Oh shit, Carrie." She giggled, then became serious again. "And after that, I just couldn't stay in Rochester anymore. I was angry at my friends and didn't know which of them I could trust, if any. Then Barry got me a job at the station. They said if I quit, they'd give me a recommendation. If they didn't, they'd fire me. I could have fought for it, but I'd already decided to quit, so why bother?" She finished her drink and I poured myself another. I think I had converted her. She nodded her thanks and shook her glass. Finally, she said, "The only person I trust, well, besides my mom and maybe Josh, is you, Bren. I know I have no right to expect anything, but I thought, well, I needed to get away, and why not go somewhere where I have at least one friend? So, you're living here now?" She nodded. I felt a stupid smile spread across my face. "That's the best news I've heard in a long time, Carrie. A very long time." Her cheeks flushed slightly, but that could have been from the whiskey. "Thanks for offering to beat him up, I know you would have." I waved it off. "How long have you been here?" "About 4 months. I got a job at KXAN and found an apartment. I kept telling myself I wanted to get on my feet and then try to find you. But to be honest, I think I was nervous. After all, I was almost married, and what if you had met someone?" I was scared, Bran. It's been 8 years. I cleared my throat. "I guess everything happens for a reason. If you had come here 6 months ago, I would have been married." Her eyes widened, and I reached out to take her hand. "It's over, I promise, it's over." Burned to the ground. "Wow, that sounds like a story." I nodded and continued telling her the details of my life with Sophia. When I finished, she simply said, "God, what a selfish bitch." "That's right." We sat in silence for a few minutes. Looking back, I don't know if I ever truly loved her. At least not the way I love you. "Do you still love me?" she asked in a weak voice. "Carrie, do you remember what I said before I got on the bus?" "You said you would love me forever," she whispered, "and that I would always love you." And I took her hand. Part 2, Sophia. My name is Sophia Paye. Sophia Paye Barnes. That's what it says on my marriage certificate. I still have it. I'm divorced, but I haven't changed my last name. It's the only thing I have left of him. I left the most wonderful man I ever knew because I was stupid. It's been 5 years, 3 months, and 14 days since I last saw him. I would do anything to get him back, but after I left him, after I hurt him, I don't think he wants me back. I cheated on him. And after Brendan left, I couldn't stand the woman I had become, so I left too. I didn't fight the divorce, and he found someone else. I was devastated, but I couldn't hate her. She made my Brendan happy. He still kept in touch with my parents, and they still treated him like a son. My mom told me about his new wife, and a few years later, about their child. I was honest with them when I told them why we got divorced. My mom and dad were very disappointed in me. It took some time, but eventually they forgave me. I hope that someday Brendan will too. But after what I did, after how I behaved, I'm afraid. When I visit my mom and dad, I ask them how he is. I think I'm being smart, just making small talk to keep the conversation going. But I think they know that I still love him. My dad convinced me that I needed to talk to someone who could help me understand why I did what I did and how to deal with the guilt. I was drinking too much, and my dad said I would die if I didn't get help. I promised him I would, and I did. It took a few tries, but I found someone I liked, and she has helped me a lot, but I still have a long way to go. Then my dad got sick. I came home driving 90 minutes from Waco as often as I could. Yes, I ran away from my life in Austin, but not far. How brave. Ha! I told myself I was going home to my dad and mom, but that wasn't the whole truth. And I had to be honest with myself first if I wanted to be honest with him when I had the chance. So, honesty? I came because I was afraid. Again. My dad had been my rock since I was a child, and I was terrified of losing him. My mom was strong. She hugged me when I cried and told me that even if my dad wasn't there, he would always take care of me and my brothers. One night when my dad was asleep, my mom said, "Mia, I know you still love him." Of course, I burst into tears. "Oh, Mom, if only you knew how much. And how sorry I am for what I did to him. And to you. Brendan loves you and Dad. We love him too. He'll always be like a son to us. His Carrie was a beautiful soul, and a little Lark is a treasure. She calls me abuela, you know. That was Brendan's idea, not mine." She stroked my arm. "So, Maria, what's your plan?" "Plan? Sophia, I'm your mother. I know you still love him and want him back. I'm asking you how you're going to make that happen." "I don't know, Mom. I think I hurt him too much." I started crying again. "Then you have to show him that you'll never hurt him again." "How am I supposed to do that?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Slowly, Mia, slowly. Don't worry, I'll help you." Next chapter, Brendan. The display read, "Lose pay A. Hi, Mom, how can I help you?" She smiled. "Hi, Brendan." I almost dropped the phone. Even after 5 years, I recognized her voice. "Brendan?" "Yes, sorry. Hi, Sophia." "Sorry to bother you, but Mom asked me to call you." "Why? What happened? What do you need?" I immediately regretted the sharpness of my tone. Very quietly, "Dad's sick, Brendan. He's too proud for you to see him like this, but his time is coming. And he'd like to see you. Could you come?" "God, of course, just tell me where." "He's at home. We've been taking care of him at the hospice for the last few days." My heart sank. Hospice. I just said, "I'll be there as soon as I can." I told Lark we were going to visit Abuela, and she replied, "Yay." I put her in her car seat and drove to the house. When I walked in, I saw Hector and Hammy sitting in the kitchen. I walked over and hugged them. "I'm so sorry, guys. I'm sorry I didn't know sooner." They just nodded. Hector said, "You know, Dad, he hates to look weak in front of anyone, even his family. But you're still our brother, you know that." I nodded and hugged them both again. "Lark, Pookie, stay with Uncle Jamie and Uncle Hector for a minute." She ran over, Jamie picked her up, and I headed for Miguel's room. I knocked and slowly opened the door. 3 pairs of eyes looked at me. Miguel tried to sit up a little in bed, and Luz just smiled at me. She was sitting next to him holding his hand. And the third person I hadn't seen in almost 5 years. Her hair was shorter than before, and she was thinner than I remembered. But otherwise, she was as beautiful as ever. My ex-wife, Miguel's daughter, Sophia. She was sitting on another chair in the room looking at me, tears filling her eyes. She stood up, took a step toward me, and stopped. My heart sank. After all, her father was lying there, dying. I just held out my arms and she rushed into my arms and cried. I just held her. "Hush, hush, I'm here. I'm with you." Finally, her crying subsided. With a last sob, she pulled away from my chest and looked at me. "I ruined your shirt," she tried to smile. "Don't worry," I smiled, letting her go. She returned to her chair, and I turned to the man on the bed and the woman next to him. These are the people closest to me since my mother died a few years ago. I walked over and hugged Luce, and she responded to my embrace with a strength that belied her age. She stroked my cheek and said, "Talk to him, mijo." She took Sophia by the hand and they left the room. I sat down next to him. How are you, Miguel?" "Not bad. I think I'll go fishing tomorrow." I laughed. He grunted, then coughed. I handed him the glass that was on the nightstand, and he took a sip. "Thanks, Mike." He looked at me sternly. "I mean it. You were like a son to us, even after my daughter went crazy. And Lark was the granddaughter we always wanted. Thank you for letting us be a part of her life." "Of course. You and Luz will always be family to her." He coughed again. "Listen to me, Brendan. I'm dying, so you have to." I tried to argue, but he waved his hand. "Listen," he repeated. "This is my last wish for you." He took my hand and said, "Please let me speak and don't interrupt, okay?" I nodded. He thought for a minute, then spoke. "Brendan, Luz and I were shocked and outraged by how Sophia treated you. I was shocked because how could the daughter I raised do that? I failed her, and I failed you. For that, I apologize." I tried to argue again. I didn't know what to say, but he raised his hand. "Don't interrupt." "I'm sorry." He looked at me. "I know she broke your heart, but I know my daughter. And even when she was acting like a spoiled child, I could see that she was breaking her own heart too. I know. He stared at me intently, and I felt the strength of his will despite the disease consuming him. I know she still loves you. I've watched her for the last 5 years. She's not the silly girl she used to be. I'm begging you, as her father, to talk to her. Even if there's nothing left between you, please take care of her. She'll need you when I'm gone. I was crying openly now, but what could I say? I leaned in to hug the man I considered my father. I promise, Dad. There were tears in his eyes. Thank you, mijo. Now please send my daughter on her way. Next chapter. Miguel held on for 2 more days. Sophia called me in hysterics. I picked her up at her house and took Lark with me. It was a trick, but it worked. My daughter is a naturally cheerful child, and a 3-year-old is bound to be a distraction. We went to the park and watched Lark play. We didn't talk about much, just chatted about her job in Waco or how I was doing, punctuated by exclamations about everything Lark was doing or that caught our attention. When Lark started to fall asleep, I told Sophia that it was probably time to take her home. She lowered her eyes and clasped her hands on her knees. I smiled, remembering her habit of fidgeting. I knew she was going to ask me something, so I just waited. Finally, she looked up and, despite the sadness I saw in her eyes, said only, "Okay, Brendan, thank you for spending the day with me." I looked at her in confusion. I was sure that wasn't what she meant to say, but I just nodded, picked up my sleepy little bundle, and drove her home. Next chapter. The funeral was 2 days later. I stood holding Lark in my arms as the coffin was lowered into the ground. Sophia hugged me around the shoulders, but her eyes were dry. Everyone was crying. After that, we all went home, and I hardly spoke to her. We all talked to the many friends and relatives who had come to say goodbye, and it was a long, hard day. Sophia caught me when I was putting Lark to bed. She had her own room in the big house. "Brendan, can I talk to you for a minute before you leave?" "I'm sorry I didn't." "Shh. You don't have to apologize. You need to be with your family. Honestly, it's okay. Go. We'll talk later. I'll sit here with Lark." This funeral reminded me. I couldn't say it. She raised her hand to her mouth. "Oh, Brendan, I'm sorry. I was so caught up in everything that I didn't even think." She was on the verge of tears. "Sophia, please. Your father just died. You have every right to focus on that. It's okay, I promise. I'm thinking about him, too." She nodded. "Are you sure? I can sit with you for a while." "Thanks, I'll be fine. I'll find you later." "Okay." She hesitated, then quickly hugged me and left the room. I sat in the dark and watched my sleeping daughter. I had a lot to think about. Next chapter. When Lark woke up, she was acting unusually moody. As I've said, she's usually a happy child. I asked her if she wanted to go home, and she nodded. I went over and kissed Luz on the cheek, and Lark did the same. I told her we'd talk soon. I saw Sophia at the other end of the room and nodded her toward the kitchen. She was talking to a man a few years older than us, but she quickly said something to him and walked away. Who was that? I immediately regretted not being able to find the right words. "I'm sorry, that was rude of me." She looked at me strangely. "Brendan, you can always ask me anything. That's our cousin Gabriel, my mom's sister's son. He's really cool, isn't he?" She teased. I turned away, angry at myself. But strangely, her words touched me. I just wanted to say I'm going home. This little changuito had a long day." "Not monkey," she said. For a 3-year-old girl, she spoke 2 languages surprisingly well. I was sure I had to thank Luz. I smiled and kissed her on the top of her head. Then I turned to Sophia. "I'm sorry, I know you wanted to talk, but how about tomorrow?" "Sure. Should I call you or will you call me?" "I'll call you." "Okay, what about Brendan?" "Thanks." I just nodded, and Sophia added, "Bye, Angel." Lark looked at her shyly and put her finger back in her mouth. Next chapter. I called as promised, but Sophia said she was still busy with her family. Her mother was very tired, and she and her brothers were trying to sort some things out. I said I understood and asked if there was anything I could do to help. She said no, not at the moment, and then paused. "Brendan, I didn't want to talk about this, but I want you to know that I'm thinking about moving back to Austin to be closer to my mom." "Okay, I think I understand, but you don't need my permission." "I know, but I really need to be completely honest with you. I don't want you to think I'm pressuring you into anything. I know you and your mom are close, and she often looks after your daughter, so I wanted to say that if my being here is causing problems, I'll try to work something out." "Sophia, I'm sorry." Of course, if you want to be with your mom, you should be with her. Thank you for considering my feelings. Of course, there won't be any problems. Luce needs you. Thank you, Brendan. I'll call you when things calm down. She hung up. Next chapter. She called, but only to say that she had talked to Luce and they had worked things out. So she was coming back to Waco to pack her things. She was a little nervous. I'm sorry, Brendan. I know I said I wanted to talk, but I didn't want you to think I was rejecting you or anything like that. Is this part of your new honesty thing? Now she sounded sad. That's not up for discussion. I'm really trying to be better. For some reason, I started to get angry. Why did I keep feeling like I had to apologize? She was the one who changed, and now she was making me feel like a jerk. It's okay, Sophia, like you said. It's your date, so just let me know when you're free. And I hung up. Next chapter. Sophia. I just stared at my phone. Mom looked at me. Well, girl? He hung up, Mom. I'm trying to be honest, but when I see the old Brendan in him, he gets so angry, and I don't know why. Mom looked at me for a few seconds. Mia, are you still the same person you were when you were married? Well, no. Like you. The old Brendan is gone too. He had to go through what happened to you, then he got married and had a child. And then his wife died. He's not the man you married anymore. Mom took my hands. You have to be patient. You have to remember that he hasn't seen you in a very long time. Now you're back, and he's probably going through a lot of emotions. Trust me, Misha. I said I'd help you, so listen to me. You have to be strong now. You have to be able to handle whatever he throws at you. Can you do that? I nodded. Thank you, Mom. How did you get so wise? She just smiled. Give it time, Sophia. Go back to Waco. I'll ask Hector and Jamie to come over tomorrow with the truck. Okay, Mom. Next chapter. As it turned out, it didn't take me long to pack up and move back into the old house. Hector and Jamie rented an apartment in town, so it was just me and Mom. I hadn't started looking for a job yet because I wanted to spend time with Mom, and we had a chance to get things back on track. Judging by his reaction during our last conversation, I decided to wait before calling Brendan. But then circumstances intervened. He called my mom and asked if she could watch Lark on Saturday. He had a meeting with a client, and due to a scheduling conflict, it had to be moved to the weekend. I was sitting at the kitchen table in my robe, eating breakfast, when I heard a knock. Then the door opened and he came in. I stared at him. He stared back at me. Then he smiled. Sorry, I'm used to just coming in. I'll knock next time. I could see him looking at me, and it warmed me in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. I lowered my eyes to hide my blush and said, It's okay. I was just surprised that Mom didn't tell me you were coming. I guess she's watching Lark today? Yes, I asked Luce if I could stop by. I have a meeting. A difficult client couldn't make time this week. Dad, don't swear, Lark muttered. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I laughed. I'm sure Mom likes having her with her, but Brendan... I suddenly felt very nervous. It's okay. I'll help Mom with her. He looked at me strangely. I hurried to fill the silence. I'd be lying if I said I just wanted to help Mom. The truth is, I want to get to know her better. She's part of you. That's why she's important. I couldn't look at him, afraid he would say no. He looked at me again for a long time, sitting with Lark on his lap. He looked at her and said, Pankin, I want to introduce you to someone. Lark looked at me timidly, and he continued, She's Tio Jaime and Tio Hector's sister, so I guess she's your Maria Sofia. I couldn't hold back. I started crying. Lark climbed off Brendan's lap and came over to me. She held out her arms for me to pick her up. I sat her on my lap and she hugged me. Don't cry, Tia. Which of course made me cry even harder. Don't worry, Lark, they're tears of happiness. Brendan was smiling too, and his eyes looked suspiciously wet. Thank you, he said. I'll be back in a couple of hours. Then turning to Lark, he added, Be good for Grandma and Aunt Sophie, okay? Okay, Dad. Next chapter. We had a wonderful time and I made several decisions. When Brendan returned from his meeting, I asked him if he would stay for lunch. He started to refuse, but Lark suddenly said, Dad, didn't Grandma promise to make empanadas? 3 kinds. Brendan fell to his knees. Well, in that case, yeah, Lark clapped her hands. Later, when Lark started to fall asleep, Brendan got ready to leave again. Well, I have to take her home. Actually, Brendan, if you don't have other plans, would you mind talking? You can put her to bed here and I blushed. Okay, Sophia, it's fine. I have nowhere else to go. Next chapter. He played with Lark, but with her belly full of her mother's food, she soon fell asleep. We settled into the chairs and he looked at me expectantly. Brendan, first I want to say that I'm very sorry about Carrie. I know I never knew her, but Mom and Dad loved her. She made you happy and gave you Lark, so I know I would have loved her too. I hope someday you'll tell me about her. Thanks, was all he said. I took a deep breath. Remember when you asked me about Gabriel and I said you could ask me anything? He nodded. Well, I just wanted to remind you of that, just in case. Another deep breath. This is going to be hard, I know. I want to explain everything, to myself and to you. First of all, I'm not the same person I used to be. I have to tell you that I'm seeing a therapist and she's helping me a lot. To understand the person I was and why I did the things I did. I'm so ashamed of that person. The person you saw in the hallway. So ashamed. I'm sorry, I promised myself I wouldn't cry. Brendan didn't say a word. He just let me talk. And then in the parking lot and at home, that conversation is etched in my memory. Now, when I think back on it, I realize I probably looked like an idiot. Everything I said was nonsense. I didn't make a single valid argument. I was just making excuses. Even later, when we met for the last time and I tried again to explain how it all happened, it was still nonsense. Of course, I believed it at the time, but looking back, it seems like someone else was saying it. I'm so sorry, Brendan. You must have thought I was such a... I didn't cry, but I couldn't hold back the tears. I'm so sorry. I took a deep breath and continued. I think I can do this now if you want to hear it. Explain, I mean. And since I'm trying to be as honest with you as possible, I want to try. Like I said, it's not just for you, it's for me too. I'm sorry if that's selfish. Brendan looked at me for a long time. I could see the confusion in his eyes. He said, that's all in the past, but if it helps you, I'm willing to listen. Okay, thank you. I snorted and tried to pull myself together. To be honest, the Sophia you married was a spoiled princess, nothing more. I always got everything I wanted. I always felt like I was in charge. I did what I wanted when I wanted. I controlled everything. Until I met you. With you, I no longer felt like I was in control. You saw me in a way no one else ever did. When we made love, I felt something I had never felt before. I know that you are the only person I have ever made love to. At first, everything between us was unusual and exciting, and I fell in love with you. Everything should have been perfect, but for some reason I started to get scared. I know it doesn't make sense, but you were right about what you said that night. I panicked. I guess I wanted to be caught to justify my escape, because that's what I did. A spoiled girl who ran away because she couldn't handle her real feelings. It was easy with Ray. With him, I was in control. I never loved him, but he was safe? No, that's not right. He was harmless, unremarkable. That's why I never felt the way I feel about you. With you, I felt like something was taking over me. I felt out of control like a leaf in a tornado. Looking back, I realize it was amazing, but at the time I was too shallow, selfish, and fearful to understand it. I hope that makes any sense. I leaned back in my chair, exhausted. I felt like I had run a marathon, but I continued. Now, please, I'm ready to answer anything you want to ask. Brendan thought for a long time, then said, I need to think about what you said. If we had talked like this back then, maybe we could have worked things out, but after I realized where you were going with this, I think I can accept the fact that the person you are now wouldn't have done those things back then. And considering that, I know we're already broken up, but how could you go back to him? That destroyed any hope we had of ever being together again, no matter how slim the chances were. I was in shock. Who told you I moved in with him? Oh my God, yes, I moved in with him, but not to get back together with him. He was calling me all the time, and I went to tell him to my face to leave me alone. And you know what happened? I started giggling. Brendan shook his head, looking confused. I went to his house and banged on the door as hard as I could. A while later, he finally opened the door wearing only his boxers, and it was clear he had slept through the night. Anyway, I started telling him what I wanted to say when I suddenly heard a voice from another room. Sorry, I just couldn't help myself. Not that it matters, but it was the same old me. I squeezed past him to see who it was. When I saw him, I just laughed and left. I swear that was the last time I ever saw him. He said, I guess I'm just as bad as you are, because now I have to know too. Who was that? I smiled. His damn cousin Inez. He stared at me. Really? I nodded, just laughing. Brendan shook his head, then looked thoughtful. I saw his eyes widen and he said in surprise, I have to apologize to you, Sophia. I remember now? How I found out about you and Ray. It was another one of Ray's projects, and I overheard two guys talking. I bet he spread the rumor himself to get back at us. I felt anger rising inside me. That, hijo de puta. Brendan nodded and said, I'm sorry. I believed that nonsense and got even more angry at you. I know it was over between us by then, but now I'm glad I know it wasn't true. Thank you for that. I'm angry that he deprived us of his lies, but I really understand that there was no chance of reconciliation back then. Brendan, I take full responsibility for my actions. You asked me what I regretted about that night, and I couldn't answer. Now I know. I regret that I cheated on you and hurt you. I'm sorry I ruined our relationship. I was scared, selfish, childish, and I behaved in the worst possible way. I would do anything to turn back time, but honestly, if I went back to that man, I would probably find another way to ruin everything. Brendan's next question was very interesting. What would be different if, and I emphasize this hypothetically, we started dating again? Would you not be afraid? I thought for a moment. That was exactly what I wanted to say to him. So I looked him in the eyes, and with all the love I still felt for him, I said, all I can say, and I hope I'll have the opportunity to prove it to you, is that I'm not that person anymore. I mentioned that I've been seeing someone, a therapist, who has helped me a lot. If you want to talk to her, I'll let her tell you everything you want to know. You can trust her to be honest. And you can be sure that I'm not trying to distort the facts. I would never do that, Brendan. Never. I know that my actions have destroyed our relationship, and I will live with pain and regret for the rest of my life for what I have done and for the pain I have caused you. I will never do anything that could intentionally jeopardize what we could rebuild, however fragile it may be. I can't promise I'll never do anything to upset you. No one can promise that. I just want a chance to see if we can be friends. Just like that. I brushed away my tears. I'm sorry, I don't know how not to cry. I just miss my friend. Please, just think about it. I kissed him on the cheek and left the room. I went to my mom and we talked. I told her that I wanted to give Brendan time to think about what I had said and give him some space. I realized that now I needed to let him control whatever happened between us. She smiled. You're learning, honey. Next chapter, Brendan. I didn't see Luce and Sophia when I picked up Lark's things and drove home. I was grateful to be left alone. On the way, I thought about what she had said to me. She had definitely given me a lot to think about. It was obvious that she had grown up since our divorce. The question was, could I love this new Sophia? She said she still loved me, and God willing, I believed her. Then I realized that it wasn't about love, it was about trust. Could I trust her again? She made an impression on me. And she said she missed her friend. I wasn't a complete idiot, I knew she was hoping for more. So was I ready to give her what she wanted? I realized that was the question I had to ask. With Sophia's new honesty, well, new to me, what would she say if I asked her if she could be satisfied with just being friends? And then I realized that of course I had to see her again. Next chapter. The next day I called her and apologized for leaving without saying goodbye to her and Luce. I asked her to tell her mother, and she said it was fine and she would. I thanked her for everything she had told me and said I needed to think about things and that I would call her back. She didn't say anything, just that she was always happy to see me and thanked me for listening to her. Next chapter. Sophia. As I promised my mother, I gave Brendan his freedom. I started looking for a job and asked Brendan if he had any suggestions for companies with a good reputation. He sent me a list of several names, and one of them invited me for an interview. I got the job and sent him a message to thank him. He sent me a short congratulatory message and a thumbs-up emoji. I spent a lot of time with my mom just talking and, surprisingly, cooking. I had never been interested in that during my princess phase, as I began to call that period of my life, and I mostly ate takeout or microwaved meals in Waco. I spent most of my free time in Waco at the gym or taking classes that seemed interesting to me. Sometimes I would go out with friends after work, but I didn't go on dates. After what I had done, men just weren't interested in me. Sure, I got compliments, but I compared them all to Brendan, and none of them even came close. Anyway, my mom was an excellent cook, and I suddenly wanted to learn how to cook. We spent a lot of time in her kitchen, and my brothers had an advantage. They now lived in the city but often came to visit, and I was grateful for the opportunity to reconnect with my brother. The three of us, my brothers and I, went to Katie Elder's, Brendan's favorite bar, several times. When I first went there, I asked Jason, the owner and bartender, and Brendan's best friend, if I could talk to him in his office. He looked at me for a few seconds and then agreed. First, I apologized for hurting his friend and for my behavior. I told him that I was no longer the same person, that I had talked to Brendan and apologized to him, and that we were considering staying friends. I said that if he didn't want me to come around, I would leave, but I just wanted to clear up the situation with their friendship. He was the best man at our wedding. He just looked at me and said, "If Brendan's okay with it, I'm okay with it." Look up the word laconic in the dictionary, and there's a picture of Jason. How he survived working behind a bar, I have no idea. I asked if Brendan played there, and he said no, not since Carrie died. I felt an inexplicable sadness. I thanked him and almost ran out before he noticed I was crying. Next chapter. A few weeks later, Brendan called again and said he had another appointment on Saturday night. He said it was the same damn guy as last time, and I laughed when I heard Lark yell, "Bad word, Daddy," in the background. He asked if we could watch Lark in the morning. I choked a little on the word we, but said yes, of course. Then I was shocked to hear him add, "And then maybe we could spend the whole day together, if Mom doesn't mind." I liked that he still called my mom Mom. I tried to keep my suddenly racing heart under control and replied, "I'd love to. I'll ask her and let you know." I told my mom about it, and she just smiled and said, "This could be difficult, honey. I think he's ready to tell you everything that happened after. You need to be ready and strong." I was too nervous to talk to him and just replied that my mom was very happy that Lark had spent the whole day with her. I decided I could ask him what he planned to do when he brought her back. Next chapter. Brendan. I dropped Lark off at Luce and Sophia's. She made coffee, and after taking a sip, I smiled and said, "Luce, you always make the best coffee." She smiled and looked over at Sophia, who was smiling shyly. "And you?" She nodded and said, "Nothing special, just coffee." "But still," I said, "it's not worse than Mom's." Then Sophia thought for a moment. "Oh, what should I wear? Should I bring anything with me?" "No, nothing, just everyday clothes. I wasn't planning anything special. I just thought we could continue our conversation from last time. You talked a lot, and I had time to think about everything. Besides, I have something to tell you. I thought we could go to the park again, just sit and talk." Sophia nodded, and I left for our date. As I was leaving, I thought I heard Luz say, "Te lo dije, mija." Next chapter. I returned home a couple of hours later. Sophia was waiting for me in jeans and a simple white blouse, unbuttoned over a turquoise top. She had a picnic basket. "I know you asked me not to bring anything, but when you mentioned the park," she shrugged cutely. "No, it's okay. I just didn't think of it. I'm glad at least one of us did." "Lark?" he called. She ran into the house and Luce followed her more calmly. "I'm here, Dad." I picked her up and stroked her neck and she squealed with delight. "Aunt Sophia and I are going out for a while. Can you stay here and be good for Grandma?" "Yes," she nodded. I tickled her and she giggled. Next chapter. We approached the place that had become ours and simply relaxed for a few minutes, enjoying the beautiful day. We chatted silently for a while. Finally, I said, "You asked me once if I would tell you about Carrie. I want to tell you now, if you don't mind." Sophia nodded. "Yes, I want to hear. But you know, this bench is pretty hard. My butt still hurts from last time. Let's lie down on this blanket instead." I gave her a "I know what you're up to" look and she smiled. "No, nothing like that. Come on, lie down." I obeyed, but instead of lying down next to me, she lay down so that her legs were in the opposite direction and her head was next to mine, her hair touching my shoulder. "Now we can talk calmly," she explained. "Before I tell you about Carrie, I wanted to thank you for giving me time and space to think about what you said last time we were here. It helped clear up a lot of unresolved issues, but I think I have some things to think about too. I just wanted to tell you about that first, and maybe after you hear my story we can decide what to do next." Sophia thought, "Mom, thank you for being so wise. It's time to be strong." But she just replied, "Of course. Some things may be hard for you to hear, but I promise I don't mean to be cruel. I just want you to know what I've been through." She nodded. Next chapter. I guess I should start with the last time I saw you. That day, 5.5 years ago, I left my lawyer's office in a daze. I got in my car and just drove. When I finally looked up, I found myself at Katie Elder's house. I went inside, and Jason looked at me and put a bottle and a glass in front of me. Then he held out his hand. I gave him my keys and poured myself a drink. I woke up at home, still dressed, with a trash can, a bottle of aspirin, and a bottle of water next to my bed. There was a note from Jason. Call me when you wake up. I swallowed 4 aspirin tablets, washed them down with water, and crawled back under the covers. After that, I poured out all the alcohol in the house, apologized to Jeff for missing work, and tried to figure out how to move forward. I threw myself into work, and when I wasn't working, I went to the gym. I went to 2 gyms. One where I did aerobics, weight training, and other exercises, and another where I boxed and sparred. I kept it up, but I probably shouldn't have. I almost hurt someone. I remember being furious. And the next thing I knew, 2 trainers had me in a headlock. Of course, I felt terrible and apologized to the guy, but they kicked me out for 6 months and told me to get my act together. A week later, Jeff told me the same thing. He made me take 2 weeks off. I went to Lake Travis and spent my days looking at the water and my nights looking at the stars. And after 2 weeks off, I came home and started to slowly pick up the pieces. I think it's been about 6 months since I last saw you. I know it doesn't seem like a long time, but for me it was like a miracle. To explain why, I need to go back even further. Sophia, I was a real nerd in school, and Carrie was my best friend. I had been in love with her my whole life and finally got up the courage to ask her out on a date in senior year. We were each other's first, we were in love. But for various reasons, I had to leave home and ended up here. And when I heard her singing in the bar that night, well, that's why I said it was like a miracle. She had a perfectly good reason to be there, but in that moment, she just appeared to me. And from that moment on, she helped me start to truly heal. 6 months after that, we got married. The next thing I remember is coming home and seeing her crying. I panicked, of course, but she just pointed to something on the table. I looked and saw a pregnancy test. I just stared at her. She was still crying, but she was smiling and nodding. So about a year and a half after our wedding, Lark was born. We were very, very happy. And that's when I felt like I could forgive you. And then she left. I remembered and started crying. Lark was a year and a half old. I remember sitting at home trying to put her to bed and waiting for Carrie to come back from the store. I offered to go with her, but Lark was a little cranky and asked me to stay home with her. More tears. I remember ringing the doorbell and feeling angry that I had woken Lark up after finally getting her to sleep. I opened the door and was surprised to see 2 police officers. They asked who I was, and I told them. They asked if my wife's name was Carrie Barnes, and I said yes. Then they said they were very sorry. I sat down and buried my face in my hands. I'm sorry, Sophia, I don't know why this is affecting me so much. She stood up when I did, came over, sat down next to me, and just hugged me. I got angry. That was damn stupid. She stopped at a gas station and went inside to buy something. There was a stoned junkie robbing the place, and when she opened the door, he got scared and shot her. Sophia held me tight because the senselessness of it all threatened to consume me. If she hadn't needed gas, if she hadn't decided to go inside, if I had gone with her, some punk took my wife and the mother of my daughter for a couple of bucks. I buried my face in her shoulder. She held me for a long time. Finally, I gathered my strength. Thank God for Luz, Miguel, and your brothers, even after us. They became the family I hadn't had since my mother died. Luz was wonderful. She took care of Larka. And Miguel, he was the rock I would lean on in the darkest moments. But I knew Lark needed me. And she, like your family, helped me get through it. I think you would have liked her. I mean, Carrie. She loved your family as much as I did. I lay down again, and Sophia returned to her previous position. That's probably all. So I want to offer you the same thing you offered me. Ask me anything you want. She hesitated. First, I want to thank you for sharing that with me. I know it was hard for you. I knew I was hurting you. But to hear it from you right now, I think I finally understand how much I hurt you. I heard her sniffle. I reached out and patted her on the shoulder. She reached out and squeezed my hand for a moment. I know I've said this before, but I can't express how sorry I am that you lost Carrie. When Mom and Dad talked about her, I couldn't be jealous even though I tried at first. It was obvious they loved her, but I was old enough to understand that it was an addition, not a replacement for someone else. The old Sophia wouldn't have been able to understand that, she added quietly. Thank you, was all I could say. I wanted to tell you that I talked to Jason the other day. He's your best friend, and I just wanted to apologize, tell him that I've changed and that we're getting closer again. He's very important to you, and I wanted to make sure he didn't mind me being there. He's a good guy. Sometimes I feel like I don't deserve his friendship. Sophia replied sadly. I know what you mean. Anyway, he told me you stopped playing? I guess it has something to do with Carrie. I sighed. I didn't stop playing. I still play for Lark. I just can't play in public anymore. I told you that when I saw her again. It was at a bar and she was singing karaoke, right? Sophia nodded. Well, I didn't tell you she was really good. We played in a band in high school and she was the best of us. If the others hadn't been so bad, we could have made money out of it. After we got back together, she sang with us at a few gigs until Lark came along. But after she left, it was too painful to go back to performing without her. Maybe someday. I fell silent, lost in my memories. Want to hear something corny? We sang our wedding vows to each other. Oh, that's not corny. Did you come up with something original? No, we really liked the song Live Forever, the Little Big Town version. One of the guys in the band helped with the arrangement and we sang that song. I'm not a very good singer, Sophia sighed, but it was amazing. But now, there's a line in that song that haunts me. I hummed it to Sophia. And if we don't die young, we can live forever. We lay there for a while, just breathing. Sophia, I began. Anne turned toward her. She turned at the same moment, and we found ourselves face to face, our heads bumping together. She laughed and exclaimed, You're an idiot. She wrinkled her nose, smiled, and rubbed her head, and for some reason I just turned toward her and kissed the spot I had hit. She froze, her eyes wide open, staring at me. My mouth suddenly went dry. I smiled weakly and said, There, that's better, and sat down. Then, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. She reached out and took my hand for a second. It's okay. Next chapter. When we returned, it was late and Lark and I stayed for dinner. Abuela is cooking chila. Chila. What is that, Abuela? Chilaquil? Mi cielo. Yes, that's tres leches, Lark informed me. Well, in that case, Next chapter. Sophia. I never pushed him. But after our long talks, I noticed a change in Brendan. He became more open. When he finally asked if I wanted to have dinner with him, I said I'd love to. Then I ran to hug my mom and cry. I had so many butterflies in my stomach that I thought I was going to fly away. I changed my clothes 6 times. My mom just shook her head. Mia, it's Brendan, don't worry. I know, Mom, I'm just nervous. She stroked my cheek. Everything will be fine. And everything was fine, even better than fine. When he arrived, he had a small bouquet of flowers and my eyes lit up. He smiled and handed them to my mom and kissed her on the cheek. I put my hands on my hips and pretended to hum. They both laughed, and I couldn't help but join in. My nervousness vanished instantly. Did he know how I felt and come up with a way to break the ice, so to speak, without letting me notice? There was more depth to him than I remembered. Come on, Casanova, let's go. I kissed my mom too, and we set off. On the way, I asked, Where's Lark? Oh, I thought I'd take advantage of Luz, so I asked one of the neighbor girls to watch her. She's a nice girl and she could use the money. Lark likes her. Oh, okay. Where are you taking me? I thought maybe an Italian restaurant. Oh, that sounds great, actually. He took me to a small place I had never been to before. The food was excellent, and we had a bottle of Chianti. We talked, he made me laugh, and I felt very comfortable with him. Afterwards, we walked along the river. We held hands and just enjoyed each other's company. It's funny how you could be happy spending time with someone and not need to say anything. That's what happened. He drove me home and kissed me on the cheek. I felt my whole body tingle. It was the perfect first date. We took our time. Sometimes we went to the movies or out to dinner. We went to Kathy Elder's and watched Brendan's old band play, which was a lot of fun. The lead singer noticed him and asked the audience to help him out. We found a spot in the park and had a couple of great picnics. He asked me to dance, and it was the best date of my life. I laughed at his dance moves, but he didn't mind. I especially liked the slow songs. Several times, men approached me and asked if I wanted to dance with them. Brendan looked at me, and I just shook my head every time. He said, "If you want to, you can. But since we're being open and honest with each other, I don't think I'd like it if you dance to slow songs." I smiled and replied, "The only guy I want to dance with is sitting right in front of me." He never pushed for intimacy, and to be honest, I was starting to get a little nervous. That night, after our dance date, he leaned in again to kiss me on the cheek. I took his head in both hands, turned his face toward me, and kissed him on the lips. He flinched in surprise, but only for a moment. I heard him make a sound deep in his throat, and then his arms wrapped around me. I wrapped my arms around his neck, and I think we would have stayed like that if my mom hadn't turned on the porch light. We both burst out laughing. Brendan blurted out, "Good night, Mom." Then he turned to me. "Thank you, Sophia. That was unexpected." I smiled. I felt like we had taken a huge step forward, but I had no idea what life had in store for us. Next chapter. Brendan. One day, Jeff invited me to lunch, and you can't say no to your boss. Not that I would have. We'd grown close over the years, and he was a mentor to me. Lunches with him were a regular thing. This time, his wife greeted us. "Thanks for joining us, Brendan. Listen, I want to ask you a favor." That was Jeff. He never liked giving orders. He always phrased things as requests. "Listen, we have a meeting with one of our suppliers next week, and as a gesture of goodwill, I said we'd visit them. It's in Dallas. I'm sorry, Brendan. I'd normally do it myself, but it's our anniversary, and Karen will be furious if I miss it. Can I count on you?" "Sure, no problem. By the way, congratulations." "How long?" 33 years of happy marriage." He smiled at his wife. "Hard to believe." "Damn, you married her when she was in elementary school, right?" I laughed. Karen blushed and slapped my hand. Jeff laughed and hugged her. Almost. Next chapter. The day before the trip, I took Lark to Luce's place. Sophia was still at work, so I just told Luce I'd be back late if that was okay. I drove 3 hours to Dallas, checked into a hotel, went down to the restaurant, and had a quick bite to eat. Back in my room, I called Sophia. "Hi, how's it going? Is Lark behaving herself?" "Of course, you know she's an angel to her mother. Do you want to talk to her?" "Sure." Lark chattered happily about what she was doing with her grandmother, then handed the phone to Sophia. We talked for another minute, made preliminary plans for the weekend, and wished each other a good night. As expected, it was a long day with several different people involved. We worked until almost 7, deciding it was better to finish everything today than wait until tomorrow. But we finally finished, and by the time I signed out, grabbed a bite to eat, and drove home, it was almost 8 o'clock. I called Luce and told her I was on my way home. She offered to let Lark stay at her place for another night, but I said I missed my little girl and would come pick her up. When I pulled up to the house, it was already 11 o'clock. Sophia wasn't home, which was strange. Luce had just said she had to go out. The driveway is circular, so you can pull in on one side and then just drive out the other without backing up or turning around. I was just putting Sleepy Lark in her car seat and getting behind the wheel when I saw another car pull up behind me. The door opened, and in the light of the interior lamp, I saw Sophia. She leaned over and hugged the driver. Everything around me contracted into a ball. I couldn't understand what I was seeing. She got out of the car and noticed my car. She smiled at me and waved. She had just come home with another guy, and she was already smiling at me. I slammed the door and drove away. I watched as she lowered her hand, and her expression changed to one of confusion. Then she covered her mouth with her hand and ran down the road. A minute later, my phone rang, but I just turned it off. The next day, I wasn't in the best mood, but I had to go to the office to report to Jeff about yesterday's meeting and give him the copies of the contracts I had brought. He could tell something was bothering me, but he didn't press the issue. I returned to my office and sank into my chair. There were several voicemails on my work phone, as well as a note from my secretary saying that Sophia had called her 3 times, saying she was upset and asking me to call her back. I ignored it all, until my office door opened and Luz walked in. I was stunned. She had never been in my office before. Sherry, my secretary, stood behind her and apologized. "I'm sorry, Miss Barnes. I told her not to disturb you, but it's okay, Sherry." Luz was dressed in her Sunday best. I stood up and asked if she wanted coffee or anything else. She just stared at me with an unreadable expression on her face. Brendan, ever since you and Sophia got married, you've been like a son to me. Even after that, you were always part of my family, but now I'm very disappointed in you. Sophia is crying at home because she knows how you feel about what she did. But you didn't respect her enough to give her a chance to explain. You just ran away like a little boy. But I saw her with that man. She was dressed up so nicely, I said in despair. You saw what you wanted to see. And that's why I'm so disappointed. Now think about what I said and wait for me for dinner. Don't be late. And she turned and left. At exactly 6:30, I knocked on her door. Luce opened the door, took Lark by the hand, and led her inside. Passing the kitchen, she pointed to a chair and said, "See you on Tate." I sat down. Luce took Lark into another room. A few minutes later, Sophia came in and sat down across from me. Her eyes were red, but otherwise she looked calm. She said, "Brendan, I know what you think you saw. I want to tell you what happened. And then I have something else to tell you. Please let me finish," she added when I started to speak. "First of all, I need to apologize to you. I should have called you, but everything happened so fast, and I knew you were in a meeting all day, so that's on me. I could have left you a message, but I didn't contact you, and if I had, this wouldn't have happened. Anyway, when I got to work this morning, my boss told me there was an event that night, and the person who was supposed to represent the company was sick. I don't know. Something unexpected happened, but he and his wife got sick and couldn't make it, so he asked, but he basically said I had to go in their place. He asked if I could arrange a date at the last minute. And normally I would have asked you, but you were in Dallas. I told him that, and he asked if there was anyone else in the office I could ask to accompany me. She paused and took a sip from her glass. I thought about it and decided that Fred Pear would be a good fit for me. He's also a real estate agent and very experienced, and very married. She looked at me. And before you ask, I wondered why he didn't just send Fred and his wife. My boss said that when the original couple declined, he decided to give me a chance. Events like this are a good way to meet people and get your name out there. The fact that he invited me means he's probably grooming me for a more important role in the company. Anyway, he said it was fine and he'd talk to Fred. Fred was fine with it and we worked out our schedules. He said I lived nearby and offered to pick me up and drop me off. We went and had a good time, but we were there to socialize and that's what we did. You saw how he gave me a ride. That's the reality. A work event with a colleague who behaved like a true gentleman. She just stared at me. Sophia, I'm sorry I overreacted. Yes, you overreacted and then you ignored me. You didn't even give me a chance. She was crying, and I felt even worse than I had the day before. You're right, you're right. I acted like a jerk and you didn't deserve that. All I can do is apologize and ask you to forgive me. I remembered what had happened 5 years ago, and the irony of fate struck me to the core. She sniffed and wiped her eyes. I don't know, Brendan, I really don't know. And here's why. Okay, we both messed up. But my mistake was not communicating with you. And your mistake was not trusting me. I know you may have been acting on emotion, but it shows that you still haven't forgiven me. You said you forgave me, but now I don't know. Brendan. She paused, took a breath, and exhaled. Brendan, I know I said I wanted us to be friends again and that I'd be happy, but I lied. God, help me, I lied. I can't just be your friend. I love you and it's unbearable to tiptoe around you. I want you back, forever. There, I said it. She sighed heavily. I said it, and I'm glad I finally did. I just stared at her. She reached out and took my hands in hers. But if you can't trust me, then there's no point. I thought you understood when I promised I would never hurt you again, and that you believed me when I said I had changed. I started to say that I believed her, but the words died on my lips. Obviously, I was still in a difficult position. If you can't trust me, if you can't forget our past, then we can't start anything new, and you have to let me go. You have to make a decision, Brendan. I love you and I always will, but now it's up to you. She leaned back in her chair exhausted. Tears streamed down my face. Sophia, please, just once more, believe me when I say I'm sorry for running away. I truly thought we were making progress. I had started to love you again. I know I was cautious, but I don't regret anything. But obviously, my reaction, I still have some issues. I thought for a moment. Can I make you a promise? She nodded. So, you said you found someone you could talk to, and it helped you. I think maybe it would help me too. Talking to someone, I mean. You offered to let me talk to your therapist. Are you still okay with that? I don't want to ask you anything about yourself. I just think maybe if she knows your story, it might help her help me. Well, if you don't mind, here's my promise. Can you give me a month? It's up to you whether we see each other, but in a month, I think I'll be able to give you an answer. Next chapter. I took a month and spent a lot of time talking to Dr. Morgan. Sophia said she loved me, but decided we needed to spend some time apart, and I agreed. At the end of the month, I returned home. Lark ran into the house shouting, Abuela, Tia Sofia, I missed you. Luz picked her up and sighed. Dios oh, how you've grown. But he kissed Lark on the cheek and, giving me a meaningful look, carried her away. Sophia looked at me, smiling uncertainly. I took a step toward her, then 2 more long steps, and hugged her. I missed you too, I whispered. She turned to me and I kissed her. Next chapter. Of course, not everything was rosy. There were things that threw us off track, but we knew what to pay attention to and always discussed everything. But overall, we gradually grew closer. When we finally made love after our long separation, it was everything I remembered and more. We had both matured, and the combination of the new and the familiar was extraordinary. Afterward, she snuggled up to me and cried. Concerned, I asked her what was wrong. Nothing, tears of happiness, she sniffed, snuggling closer to me. Not long ago, I thought I'd never see you again, and now… I've wanted this for so long, baby. I love you so much. We fell asleep in each other's arms. Next chapter. This time, the wedding was much more modest, but we didn't care. Luz cried, Jason pretended not to cry, and Jeff and Karen just sat there beaming. There weren't many relatives or friends. I called Carrie's mom to tell her the news, and she cried too, but wished us happiness. Carrie would have wanted this for you, Brendan. I invited her to come and see her granddaughter, and she promised she would. Then the ceremony began. Lark was having a blast, jumping around on the stage and throwing flower petals. She walked up to the altar and rushed toward me. Here, Daddy, she whispered, and handed me the rings. Thank you, sweetheart, I whispered back. Go sit with your grandmother, okay? She nodded and ran to Luz. Then I turned to look down the aisle. She was just as stunning as she had been the first time she walked toward me on her brother's arms. They handed her to me with smiles. Both kissed their sister on the cheek, and Hector nudged me in the shoulder. Finally, brother, he said. We turned to face each other. Well, here we are, I muttered. She just smiled. Next chapter. The reception was coming to an end, and Sophia and I were dancing a slow dance. I was holding Lark in my arms. She hugged me around the shoulders and smiled. She looked at Sophia. I don't know my mom very well because I was just a little girl, but Dad said she's watching us from heaven. She turned to me. So when I go to heaven too, she'll be my mom again? I nodded, tears welling up in my eyes. Yes, sweetheart, she'll always be your mom. Okay, that's good, she nodded. Then she looked at my new wife. But are you still my Tia? She furrowed her little brow, thinking. Sophia looked at me in confusion. I just turned away and shrugged. Good luck, I whispered in her ear, and she stepped on my foot. But before she could respond, my daughter made up her mind. I think you're my mom now, Sophia. And that's how it stayed. A few months later, we found out that Lark was going to have a little brother. We're going to name him Miguel. The end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for new videos.